Hey, everybody, it's Steve Fretzin, and welcome back to the show that gives you what every lawyer wants, which is how to grow a book of business, how to personal brand, and that is Be That Lawyer with Fretzin. We are so excited to be here twice a week. And as you all know, I love to bring on interesting guests that are going to help to sort of give you, the longest runway of how to build your career and be successful in personal branding and in marketing and business development, all that fun stuff. And today's no different. I got Dennis waiting in the wings. How's it going, Dennis?
Very good. Very good.
All right, man. Good to see you and good to have you on board here. Let's start off with your quote of the show. And I am a big Bruce Lee fan. I grew up with him in the 70s and watched all his movies. And obviously, he's done, there's, been a number of documentaries and movies about his life and everything. And I just continue to be impressed by this guy on a number of levels. And let's go through that quote. It's to hell with circumstances. I create opportunities. So welcome to the show and tell us why that quote of the show is your favorite.
I think that, it's a pretty self-explanatory quote. I think some people wait around for things to happen, right? They wait for the right set of circumstances. They wait for this thing to happen or that thing to happen. And the truth is, there is no such thing as right circumstances. You just have to create opportunities. Motion creates, creates emotion, creates energy, and so that's how I've always been. I've been one of those people that, I take responsibility for the failures, but I also fight for the wins, and so
Yeah.
I that's my desktop quote. I just leave it
Oh,
there and just
nice.
remind
Okay.
myself.
Hey, everybody, I know you're enjoying this interview. To hear more just like this, check out all of the podcasts on our website. Link is in the description below. The big challenge that lawyers have is that they're so busy billing hours and they're so busy running firms and doing all these things and wearing all these hats that marketing sometimes gets pushed down and they don't do it, or maybe they just outsource it to someone who there's how many legal marketing companies out there that are not really
Right.
doing a great job. So how should lawyers be thinking about marketing from the top down?
I think first and foremost, the realization that there is a commoditization of their industry, that it's no longer the premier industry that it used to be. It's not the unquestionable industry that it used to be. Like no one goes, oh, they're sending me to this specialist for my knee. Well, let me just Google all the other knee specialists and just let me read the reviews and let me call them and ask them their rates. Like no one does that, right? Well, people didn't used to do that with attorneys, but now they do. Now they're like, oh, I need a lawyer. Well, let me look. Oh, look, whatever, divorce lawyer Austin, and they'll look it up, and there's just this, laundry list of attorneys, and then I guess the directories are starting to kind of hit back up again on search results, especially in AI. So you got a directory with like FindLaw or Avo or whoever, and it's just like, how do you go from being another guy with a couple of letters next to his name, a number of years next to that, and then their specialty, to the person who people want to work with because of who they are and of what they know. And I think that that's really the key, is to get away from the over commoditization of their industry right now, that the points of differentiation, a way of really putting themselves and separating themselves.
Okay, so let's run with that because I love what you're saying. If you're just one of a million fish in the ocean, right? It's like how are you separating yourself? And I think that's a very challenging things for lawyers to do. What would be an example of someone that you've either helped or seen that has been able to do that in his or her particular area?
I mean, we see it often because, I mean, that's what we specialize in, is, creating like sort of thought leadership, differentiation sort of marketing. And almost every attorney, and this really up until the pandemic, every attorney would say, well, if I could just get them across from me, I know that I'll get their business, right? They all say that. And so it was like, okay, that's fine. But here's the reality. 80% of people check out your website before they ever visit you. The getting them across from you is now done before they ever call you, before they ever show up. And so you have to, in your marketing, in what you're doing, take who you are offline and reflect that online, instead of just, oh, I have like a nice logo and a nice looking website, and then I've got my about me page that says I went to this school and I won this contest. And it's like, people don't care that you won some sort of like fake mock trial 28 years ago. Like they want to know like what you're doing now. They want to know that you know what's going on right now in society. They want to know that you understand their specific challenges. And that's what content marketing, positioning marketing, with us we use podcasting for that. That's what that does is it allows you to take who you are offline and reflect it online. And when you can do that, then you have no one to blame but yourself, whether or not you're successful. Because now you can't say, well, it's the marketing, it's this, it's like, no, hold on. Your marketing reflects who you are. So either you're not being presented in the best light or you're not communicating effectively what you need to get across.
Yeah.
So I think
So
it's a shared responsibility.
okay, okay, and I think it's tough for lawyers to sort of see what makes them different or understand what makes them different or special in their space, and they do feel like they're just one of a million fish in the ocean or whatever it might be. And one thing I've been talking to them about is you know think about what you're really, really great at doing and think about what you enjoy and maybe talk to a few clients about what they think about you and why they continue to use you, why they think you're special, better, different, unique, and see if you can put it all together to come up with some sort of overarching theme that you can then market around. Because I think what they're doing right now is what's called in the industry, right, random acts of marketing. I'll do a social
Right.
media post here, I'll do a video there, I'll throw an article up there, and I'll hope that all these little things that I do will eventually help me build a brand. And I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's the right approach.
No. It there has to be a like, okay, what is the message? And I think it also, to take that one step beyond reflecting who you are is reflecting who your ICP, your ideal client profile is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we build everything. So like when we bring on a client, we have an onboarding meeting, and part of that onboarding meeting is, what is your ideal client profile, what is your jurisdictional profile, what is your brand profile, like how do these three things meet together, right? Because you can say my ideal client is billionaires who are getting divorces, but then it's like, okay, in your jurisdictional profile, how many billionaires got divorced last year? None. Okay, so then let's rebuild that. It's got to match your jurisdictional profile as well. And so, understanding who your client is, because then you can build towards the issues that they have, right? I always like to use two examples. Like one example I'll give is like a criminal defense attorney who will be like, well, I mean, I don't know what I bring to the table. I've done this 30 years, but like, well, what's one difference between me and the next guy? We could probably plead him down to this or whatever. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Let me say I come to you and I have, a third DUI. And so like I'm looking at probably maybe a felony or some sort of major whatever fines and maybe whatever. I said, would I get the exact same result if I hired 10 attorneys in the market? And he's like, well, no. And I said, well, what would change the results? Well, for example, for me, I know that in this particular county, that if I can get you in front of this particular judge, he has two kids that had three DUIs that were, that one got treated harshly and then one didn't or whatever. So I know to get you in front of this particular judge. I also know that this particular judge you never want to be in on front of on a Monday because every Monday he hates life because he has to be back in the office. So I always try to get in like on a Wednesday or Thursday where he's not trying to slide out the door, but he's settled into the week. Okay, so that's your competitive advantage that makes you different is you understand your jurisdiction, you understand the right judge, you understand the prosecutors, you understand. So that's your secret sauce. But people don't know that by looking at your website. It says you went to such and such law school 30 years ago, you won a mock trial. Oh, DUIs, I can do that. Oh, felonies, I can do that. Just like every other website. I call it a Mr. or Miss Every Attorney site. It's just this generic website that says I do that. And you need to go beyond I do that to here's how I do that and here's why I do it differently.
I love that. I love that. And ultimately, once you figure that out, how does that impact the decisions you make on how and where to market yourself for to get the most in the right business?
Absolutely. Well, I'm sort of like at that point. I think we're becoming to the point where everything's so integrated and things like that. If you know what you're doing, you can be fairly outlet agnostic, is what I call it, right? So it's not about like, oh, I'm going to just invest in LinkedIn or I'm just going to be on Facebook. Like literally, like you can hook everything up and like you can reach each outlet. But that being said, taking those people and kind of building at least what we do with ours is we have within our team, Tracy, who's our content director, she's been writing content, FAQ, like, because we do all QA sort of podcasts. So it's like 7 to 10 questions, 17 to 21 minutes, one specific subject that we cover. And so like she's been doing this for 10 years. She did SEO content for lawyers, book content for lawyers, and now podcast content with lawyers. And I've worked with her for 7 of those 10. And so she knows like, oh, this is who your client is. Well, here's what the questions are. So again, the second illustration I'll give is in like with a divorce lawyer. Like a divorce lawyer, do you want to just show up for divorce lawyer? Or if your ideal client is a high net worth individual, then why not answer questions like what happens to a second home during a divorce?
Mm.
Things like that. Because that's an indicator of a higher net worth individual, and you're answering their specific question, not just the generic what happens to communal property during a divorce, but a very specific question. Now they're feeling as if you're speaking directly to them, and you've obviously helped other people with their situation.
Yeah. What do I do with my yacht? Right?
Exactly.
Q&A. um,
Exactly.
all right, very good. Let's transition to both one of a piece of the marketing world that you and I are both very passionate about, podcasting. It's a concern for attorneys that thinking about podcasting, but they might say, "Am I in it too late?" Like there's already a million podcasts. I'm just going to be another one of these podcasts that no one's going to listen to. And they're going into it potentially with that attitude. Why is that the wrong attitude?
Well, a few reasons, but I'll say first and foremost, for every one podcast, there's 8,000 blogs. So we're nowhere near saturation, oversaturation. And I think just like as the internet got smaller, it got bigger, it's going to be the same thing with podcasting. People are going to realize, especially in like, where the payout isn't eyeballs, it's clients. So as an attorney, I always use the illustration. Let me ask you, would you rather have 50,000 views of your podcast, but they're in Indonesia, they're in Australia, they're in Mississippi, and you're in Chicago? Nobody's going to call you. Nobody's going to become your client out of this, but you can say, I had 50,000 views or 50,000 listens to my podcast. Or would you rather have 50 people listen to it that are in your market, 10 of them call you, and 5 of them hire you? Which
Yeah.
one is of value to you? So podcasting becomes micro podcasting. What we try to do is basically say, listen, we're not trying to get you to be the foremost American divorce lawyer. We want you to be Chicagoland's high net worth or Chicagoland's father, or divorce lawyer that focuses on the men's side.
Yeah.
And when you can become that, now you're owning your market, and now it's of huge benefit to you. No, I always tell people, no one's going to subscribe to your podcast and listen to every episode. What they're going to do is they're going to find the episode that has to do with them and their issues. They're going to listen to it. Then they're going to go and they're going to check out your YouTube channel, maybe watch a couple of other things, maybe download another episode that has to do with their situation. And then they're going to go to your website and they're going to see the FAQ and the videos that are on there. And then they're going to call you and they're going to say, instead of, well, how much does it cost? They're going to say, how much would it cost me to be able to work with you? And that's a very different statement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very different positioning. Most attorneys, and I talk to them all the time, I say, how many calls do you get like this? How much is your rates? What does it cost? Like how often is that the first thing? And they're just like, oh, and you can just hear it right away. They're just like, oh, all the time. It pisses me off. That's not your client, don't you? Yeah, probably not. But I got to still go through the little hoops because every once in a while I still get a client. Said, okay, so if you were to reposition yourself where you were getting calls saying, okay, I saw I listened to your podcast. I've been on your YouTube page. I've spent time on your site. I see that you focus on guys like me. I see that you help people just like me. How much is it going to cost me to be able to work with you? Would you rather have calls like that? Well, heck yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the focus that we try to help them use podcasting for, is to drill down, not cast a wide net and get $1,000 check from YouTube every month, but drill down and get, some good solid calls that fit their ideal client profile.
Right. And I think the other piece of it is that there are a lot of podcasts, but not everybody has the persistence to stay with it, right? So there's all these people starting podcasts that get 10 and 15 and 20 in and then quit. And I think that's going to really limit the number of podcasts that actually make it and have the longevity and the stamina to continue to draw in the audience or to draw in, their listenership.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, like, to us, like, podcasting is a means to an end for our attorneys. Like, yes, podcasting in and of itself can get clients, but then we take that and we take the transcript and we edit it and we create FAQ content for their website. And then we create little videos and, shorts and reels, and we place it on all the different social media outlets. And then now we're getting ready to start creating audiograms and do the same thing. So it's like taking just a little bit of their time, half hour of their time. And with a half hour of their time, we can create a podcast, put it on 30 different outlets, create 20 different types of posts. And every weekday, every business day, they've got content going out, and all they did is spend a half hour of their time. And so that's a big advantage we see for the attorneys as well.
That's the dirty little secret that lawyers may not understand is that there are people like you that assist in getting it started and coming up with a theme and really working to get it done and then, repurpose all the different pieces of it so that it's all out there. And people think, for example, because I do 2 a week, that I'm like, hey, that must be your full-time job. Like, this is my full-time job. It's not. I have a full-time job, right? It's working directly with lawyers on business development and growth. I'll do 2, maybe 3 in a day. And that's like a big day for me. But typically it's a couple a week that I'm doing to keep up with the 2 a week that I'm putting out. And that's an hour a week, maybe an hour and a half, because I do a little pre-interview to, select the topic and all that, like you and I met ahead of time and all that. But ultimately, you think about how much content's being created and how that can generate so much traction in building a brand. I don't think there's a better tool. I think you just need to sort of flesh it out with an expert. You probably better than me. I've helped probably 10 or 15 lawyers get into podcasting, and they're loving it.
We have about 100 doing podcasts with us right now.
Yeah.
And we're coming we're coming on a year launching this program. So we've grown and grown and grown. I mean, that's been our biggest thing. We went from, I tell people, we went from spreadsheets to monday.com to now we're moving into ClickUp. And, we went from me with a couple of like 2-3 people, and now we're looking for our 32nd and 33rd hire on the team. With most, like, I have 2 salespeople. So that's not like a huge sales organization with a back end trying to work. It's like, we've got full-time social media people, full-time, I've got 7 people that just make shorts full-time, for my clients. So it's definitely like the ability to multiply the time that they give. That's the biggest, I think, helper. And it's custom content, right? Custom content on a continual basis that keeps people on the page will always kill it in the algorithm. So we're feeding the algorithm for them. We're feeding YouTube for them, which, helps with the algorithm. So there's so many things that we're doing between the YouTube videos, between the social videos, between the website content, between everything else, that it's one of those things that it just has such a cumulative, I like to call it like, one drop becomes a waterfall, right?
Yeah.
As it builds.
And here's the final thing we'll say about podcasts, and then we got to wrap up the show. But there's a marketing perspective, which you and I just spoke about for a little bit here. The other side of it is the business development perspective. The fact that you might be interviewing GCs, you might be interviewing CEOs, you might be having conversations with strategic partners who have direct ability to work with you or refer you. And you're building this network not on, hey, I want to sell you something, you should meet with me. It's, hey, I'm going to give you some free publicity or promotion. We're going to have a conversation and we're going to get to know each other in that format. And then the follow up to that is, continued value that you're adding for them. And the fact that they might say to you, you know, it's so interesting what you do, Dennis. You know, you're someone that I might want to work with. I've always thought about doing a podcast, and now all of a sudden I've turned into a prospective client. So there's the business development side and the marketing
Right.
side really working hand in hand, which I don't think people really understand how valuable that can be.
Absolutely. And we kind of do it two different ways. So obviously so we provide hosts and we provide the questions and we make I call it guardrails with collaborative opportunities, right? So our guardrail process is we come up with the questions, we send you the questions, our hosts ask you the questions, you answer the questions. It's your show, it's your branding, it's your channels, you own everything. But we have attorneys that are like, well, what if I want to interview people? We're like, not a problem. We're more than happy to take care of all of that. We'll remove the host, or the host can ask the two of you and kind of like, if you're not as comfortable, they can ask you and them together. And so we've had attorneys that have come on with what typically would be their guest, almost as like a guest with them. And then they've almost seemed like they're on a team together, building camaraderie.
Yeah.
And then some of them went on to the other side and asked the questions to their guests as well. And we're open to either way, but certainly building that relationship. You know, if you say, hey, would you like, you know, can you give me a half hour for a demo? People are like, I'm busy. But if you're like, hey, would you like to be on my podcast? That's a very different response. People will usually be like, oh, when is it? Yeah, let's do it. You know, So I certainly see that.
Yeah, guesting on podcasts has become, you know, it's a business. It used to be PR people were out to try to get you, you know, into Forbes or get you into different publications. And now it's a lot. I mean, I'm getting 5 to 10 solicitations a week from podcast promoters who are trying to get lawyers and other folks on my show, which I think is a sign of success, but also it's demonstrating, you know, how the kind of the world has changed and how important podcasts can be for expansion of brands more so than traditional magazines or things like that. Hey, Dennis, we got to wrap up. Let's talk about your game-changing podcast, which is called The Office Ladies. And those are, for those of you who love the show The Office, I think this is maybe one to pick up.
So yeah, I was kind of off and on podcasts for years, and then The Office Ladies kind of drew me back in to be like really definitely like into podcasting again. Love The Office, probably watched it 6 or 7 times. I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase, but The Office is the only show where people won't ask you, have you watched the podcast? They say, do you watch the podcast or The Office? Mm-hmm. And so people who watch The Office watch The Office. They don't stop watching it. They just watch it and watch it and watch it. So definitely one of those people. That being said, I came across, it was called, and it was right in the beginning when it had come out a few years back, The Office Ladies, Jenna Fisher, who plays Pam, and then Angela Kinsey, who plays Angela on the show. They're doing a rewatch together. They're going through episode by episode, season by season. They give you a lot of behind the scenes. They bring people on, like, you know, just all the way. They had like one person was like that worked the sandwich cart one time because it was like they were like, we had the greatest snacks, and then like, if I remember this correctly, but like they like talked about all the food and all the stuff and had that person on. So it really like kind of opens it up for you.
Yeah.
Really enjoy that. So it allows me to like, now I'll watch The Office and I'll be able to be like, oh, I know what just happened in the background, because they'll like talk where people break and like how they had to pan away with the camera and things like that. So you get all this like kind of behind the scenes sort of understanding of the context of everything. And I really enjoy it.
Yeah. One of the greatest shows of all time. Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this fabulous interview. If you want to check out more about what Fretzin does every day to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker, please check out our services page on our website. Just go to the website, check it out. I know you'll enjoy it. Thanks. Hey, let's wrap up with thanking our wonderful sponsors. If you haven't heard the Law Her podcast with Sonia Palmer, you're going to want to check that out. That's a really good one. And then also, of course, we want to thank Rankings.io and our friend Chris Dreyer over at PIMCon coming up in October if you want to sign up for that. Hey, Dennis, if people want to reach out, they want to check into you to either understand more about how you help them with marketing and podcasting, what are the best ways for them to reach you?
So obviously LinkedIn, Dennis, Dennis Meador, like a meadow, but with an R on the end instead of a W, Meador. And then easiest, thelegalpodcastnetwork.com. So if you think of the Ohio State University, thelegalpodcastnetwork.com. We've got samples on there. We're actually getting ready to launch version 2.0. We're about to go from, basically when we originally started, we were doing 3 pieces of content per episode. We're now getting to the point where we're going to be putting out on our second level 30 pieces of content
Oh my God.
for one episode.
Wow.
So just to kind of give you the growth, and so we're getting ready for that. I just want that product that just kills it for lawyers, and then go deep, do super well, keep building out our systems, and then we're going to go wide, start adding in other professions, other verticals. But right now, I know lawyers. I love lawyers. I've worked with them long enough, had a bunch of great conversations, and continue to plan on doing that for years to come.
Yeah. Well, Dennis, thanks for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I think this was a great opportunity for lawyers listening to this show to get 3, 4, 5, 6 takeaways, whether it's how to make a teenager's life more difficult as opposed to easier, or it's about how to market yourself, brand yourself, and get involved in podcasting. All really, really good stuff. So thanks again for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Enjoy.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for hanging out with Dennis and I today on Be That Lawyer. We are here for your listening pleasure to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care, everybody. Be safe, be well. We will talk again soon.